And so now we move into massaging the back. So, first off, you want your client to feel nice and secure and comfortable. If we can see here, I have a bolster here under the feet. Some people like a pillow under the pelvis or under their stomach. So it's up to you to make sure that your client feels comfortable. So then, making sure to keep correct draping, we pull the towel back down. So I don't like to treat people without underwear on. So as we can see here, we start to see the underwear. That gives me a good indication of where that person is. And we can just pull that back. And then they feel nice and secure as well. Another way to do this is to, if you're going to be working on the glutes, pull a bit of the towel up, then finding where you are, pulling the underwear down, and it keeps the glutes covered. So as you're working on it there, you can just pull back what's needed. And so, to begin with, we grab a bit of oil and we spread it out. And so while we're doing this too, we're still assessing. We're still looking for areas that are obviously tight to us. Throughout the spine, throughout the shoulders, through the lats, everywhere. So once we've applied our oil, starting from the base, this is just how I do it, we come up both sides of the erectors. So this just gives those muscles a bit of a warm up. We can see what pressure the client is happy with just by even asking, how's that pressure?
Good.
And it gives us a good chance to assess up through the spine which muscles or which areas are tight and need to be worked on. So there I'll start to work on one side. So up the right I make little circles. Once again just checking those erector muscles, the multifidus. Which ones are tight? So I normally do that about twice. Working down through those shoulders. And so then we come around to the other side of the table. And from here, I like to work top, down and back up as I'm going. So we start out with the trap and the levator scapula, which create a fair bit of tension right into this part. Up here, right up into the base of the neck, which we'll get to a bit later. Now the back is probably the part that I spend the most time on, being the most complicated part because it's so movable, can create a lot of tension all through the levels, through the thoracic and through the lumbar. So just calm down. Just working our way down, using our various techniques through. So a common place for tension here is at this point here. So from the scapula, the shoulder blade, there's what's called a trigger point at this point, which the person may be able to feel, because it normally has a fair bit of pain associated with it there. But we're just feeling at the moment. And so, even with females, you want to come right around under the edge of that scapula, right up into this point, here where my thumb is, because this is where the latissimus dorsi starts to come out and comes up into the arm. So that's a very good spot that normally has a lot of tension in it as well. So we just work that. So you should be able to feel the fibres stretching. as you're going along. And so then, coming up even further, right in the actual joint of the shoulder itself, here we've got the Teres Minor. Now, this little muscle can either be weak as the pec pulls that shoulder forward, or it can be tight as it's trying to counterbalance that pec. And it's part of the rotator cuff. All the muscles that make up the rotator cuff. So there's always a little bit of tension in there as well, as they can probably feel. And that's another point when you're finding those sore points. So if we come back to this trigger point here, don't just put that direct pressure on there, because it might be too much for the client. If they start to squirm or make any noise or ask you to stop, spread your fingers out. So spreading how much space you're taking up across the body. And it also lessens the pain, as it's not directly on that area. As well as lightening your pressure. So, yeah, if I've just got my thumb on there, it might be too much for the person to handle, but that same pressure can be applied across all the fingers, top, bottom, as well as across there, as we come across. So moving down, another common area is the quadratus lumborum. So that attaches from the hip up to the last rib there. This area always, especially if there's a hip deviation, is always a target. You get quite a bit of congestion right at the top of the muscle there, the origin of it. And it's another one that can become quite sore, so we just want to make sure that we give that a bit of a rub. Another point to note, guys, never rub directly on the spine, just either side of it, because rubbing straight onto the bone is quite uncomfortable for people. And so just coming down onto the top of the hip and across. Like so. Getting your thumb right in just above that SIJ, the sacroiliac joint. Now, while I'm there too, I do like to come across the top of the glute, so more so on the glute med, the gluteus medius side of things, and coming down into the TFL, or the tensor fasciae latae, and loosening up in there as well, just giving it a general loosen up. As these muscles here can start to pull that hip down. And just across that sacrum as well. Across the posterior or the lower aspect of that sacrum. There. Where we have that piriformis muscle that was mentioned before. This is its origin or insertion point. Across there. So then just coming back up. And you'd work all these spots until you feel them start to release, which they are doing right now. And so once you're happy with that, we start to work on the other side. Once again, assessing up through the multifidus, the erector spinae, and down through the shoulders. Before coming around and coming back into that trap and the levator scapula, down through the rhomboid, as well as the trap, because it's a big muscle, across, down and under, onto that latissimus dorsi, and up into that teres, and on top of the scapula too, you've got that infraspinatus. And if you really want to come up all the way out into here, so we've got the supraspinatus in and around in that area. And just working your way back down along the side of the spine then. Now you can, if you can find the ribs quite easily, get your fingers in there and you can work those intercostals as well, which might need a bit of work. And down. Once again, that QL. Another way to come at the QL and to find another trigger point is to come in from the side there, like so. You can feel yourself rise up over the ridge of that muscle and on top. But now back down into that sacroiliac joint, and then just a bit lower onto that glute med. And down into the TFL, or the tensor fasciae latae. Into the hip there. Then coming back up and around, getting into that origin of the piriformis, which is quite a common complaint too if someone's got sciatic. It normally is because of that piriformis muscle, in my experience anyway. And once again coming back up. And from there, once I've done that, then I'm free to work both sides. So there I get a better picture too. So if this QL's tight, might mean that this lat's tight here and then coming up into this trap, as it normally makes a bit of a zigzag across the body. Now in a normal treatment I'd spend 20-25 minutes of the hour just on the back and hips, and a little bit on the neck alone. But I normally save the neck to the end of the treatment, but that's just my preference. But anyway guys, that's it for this lesson. I'll see you in the next one.